Corsair's Carbide series of cases are aimed at the budget end of the market, with the 330R being no exception. I'm Standalone Fighter and welcome to my review. At the top of the case you can see the cover for the dual 120 or 140mm exhaust fans. This is particularly good because it stops dust falling from the top into your system over time. Over to the front of the case you can see we have the power, reset, microphone, headphone and USB 3.0 ports. Just below that we can see we have three 5¼ drive bays and a filter for the front intake fans. There's room at the front of the case for two 120mm intake fans, however only one comes included at the front. You'll also notice the acoustic foam on the hinge door at the front of the case. Looking at the bottom of the case we can see here that there's a magnetic removable dust filter. This will be great for keeping dust out of your system. It's very nice to see here that Corsair's covered all the intakes of the case with dust filters. Moving on to the sides of the case we can see that the side panels are held on by two thumb screws. While it was easy enough to take off the right side panel just by removing the thumb screws, the left one proved to be more difficult. I had to use a screwdriver to remove the screws because they were in more tightly. Inside the case we can see we have a toolless mounting design for hard drives. Just simply pull out the hard drive caddy, bend it back, insert the drive and just simply insert it back into the drive bay. Unfortunately the drive cage cannot be removed, so no water cooling can be put at the front of the case. The 5¼ drive bay also features a toolless design. Simply lift up the lock, slide in the drive and press down on the lock to secure it in place. The motherboard standoffs have been pre-installed for ATX, Micro ATX and ITX motherboards. At the bottom of the case there's ample room for any length of power supply to be fitted at the bottom. However, I was disappointed there wasn't inclusion of a 120 or 140mm fan at the bottom. There's room inside this case for graphics cards up to 15 inches in length, however where the hard drive cage is it's 10 inches on length. At the rear of the case we can see there's one 120mm fan included. As you will have most likely noticed, the whole case is surrounded by sound dampening foam. This will really help to reduce the overall noise of the system. At the top of the case there's clearance for a 240mm radiator, however if you wish to put a 280mm radiator there won't be enough space for the radiator and the fans, so the fans would actually have to be mounted outside of the case at the top. There are plenty of holes around the back of the case for cable management, however at the back there's only less than 1 inch of clearance, so cables might get a little bit cluttered. There's 4 mounts at the back of the case, which I think was previously going to be used as an SSD mount at the back of the case, but I could not see one included. I'm really disappointed that this feature wasn't in this case. There were no rubber grommets in the cable management holes, however the metal has been rolled over so it won't be cutting through your cables. This case was a pleasure to work with. It was easy to install the system and only with a few minutes of cable management I could get this system looking clean, however the cables were a bit squashed at the back. Overall this case is really good value for what it is and the features that comes included, and especially that you're getting noise dampening foam at this price point. The build quality feels very solid and there's very little flexing in the actual case itself. In conclusion, I like that every intake is dust filtered. I like that there's a cover at the top for sound isolation and to stop dust falling in from the top. I like that there's loads of cable management holes for routing of cables. The sound dampening materials work really well and definitely keep the system quiet, and the water cooling support at the top. Unfortunately the hard drive cage at the front was not removable, and as a consequence of that you have no front radiator support for water cooling, and I feel that there was wasted space at the bottom where the power supply was. There could have at least been an intake fan there. I was a little bit disappointed that there were no SSD brackets at the back of the case, and more room at the back was needed for cable management.